Good morning, everybody. We have no mics, so we have to talk really loud and we have to meander through the crowd, so you have to be nervous that we call on you, right? I got to shake this guy's hand because he's wearing a Purdue sweatshirt, because I'm a Purdue guy. We're in enemy territory over here, so we got to rally the troops a little bit. So thank you, everybody, for being here. So we're going to talk to you a little bit about NutrientStar for an hour or so, and hopefully bring some clarity around that. I want to touch on a few things to hopefully allow it to better relate to you so you can understand what NutrientStar is and what we do in our business. And Rob's going to touch on some of the tools there. And so I'll talk here for a couple minutes and then turn things over to Rob. So let me talk really quick to kind of set the stage for what NutrientStar is, okay? So like John introduced, I'm Greg Kneubuhler. I own and operate G&K Concepts. I think I got a picture of our team. So we're an independent crop consulting business, all right? We got involved with Environmental Defense Fund and Karen 12 years ago. Has it been that long? Time flies when you're having fun. So we got involved with Karen about 12 years ago, and no matter what hat you wear in here and what you do in your business, I think what NutrientStar does applies to you and brings value to you. And the reason I tell you what we do a little bit is because I think what we do sets a stage for what value NutrientStar really brings. So we're located in, well, lasers don't work on TVs. We're located in Northeast Indiana, so we work on a lot of similar soils to what you guys probably deal with. We do a lot of work in Ohio as well. So I want to throw this in really quick. There are a few Brookside folks in the room, actually, but we're a part of Brookside Labs, which is a group of independent consultants, and we kind of share the same ideas and same philosophies, and to bring value to farmers. We don't sell anything in our business. Our job is to find solutions for farmers, and that's a lot of what the Brookside group does. And I kind of put this up here because Brookside, I think, Karen, was the original link of how we really got started in working together to culminate into NutrientStar. Now, let me say this. Now, so Karen up here works for Environmental Defense Fund. They're the backbone for NutrientStar. Now, let me tell you where we started with Karen. Karen didn't know I was going to say this, but so 12 years ago or so, Environmental Defense Fund called us up and said, hey, we would like to do some nutrient reduction strategy work with you guys. We're Environmental Defense Fund out of Washington, D.C. What was our response, Karen? Our response was, we'll get back to you on that. So we thought, okay, Environmental Defense Fund out of Washington, this can't be good. So we let it go and let it go. A few weeks go by, and they call again. We'd like to do some nutrient reduction strategy work with you. Would you work with us? And again, we said, we'll get back to you on that. So we kind of let time go by for a few months, and they kept pursuing us and kept pursuing us. And long story short, we finally gave in and agreed to start doing some work with them. And we did nitrogen rate trials for years. We did guided stalk sampling. We did similar things to what On-Farm Network was doing a few years ago. But the reason I tell you that is because they have been a fantastic group to work with. Environmental Defense Fund's goal is to not take things away from farmers at all. Their goal is to find solutions through science that work or that don't work. If more is required, that's great. If less is required, that's better. But they do not intend to take things away from farmers, okay? Which is very important because we don't want to take things away from farmers. And where are we sitting right now? What watershed are we sitting in right now? Probably one of the most scrutinized watersheds in the country, all right? This is a dangerous place to be. And so it's important to work with those that are actually advocates for farmers, and that's why I say that. And it is really important. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it. Trust me, Rob and I and the team, we got 100 other things to do. We don't need to do stuff that take up our time. But we would not spend time with Karen and EDF and NutrientStar if we didn't recognize value. Okay? Now, before we get into the premise of what NutrientStar is, because I want to make sure we have enough time to talk about that, I want to say this. In our business and for our clients, it's important to manage the basic agronomy. Okay? Would anybody in here, actually, everybody raise your hand if you agree with me that it's important to manage the basics of agronomy first before you focus on anything else, whether it's a foliar or an in-furrow or special treatment this, special treatment that. Do you have to fix the basics first? Raise your hand if you agree with me. Okay? Should see about every hand in the arm, because that's the moral code of being a CCA, right? And that's the root cause of what we all do. Because if we don't do that, we wouldn't have customers and we wouldn't have a business, right? So this slide is just a bunch of fancy pictures, but the bottom line is you have to address the basics and avoid variable rate because you can, and that's a whole nother hour-long conversation. But the point is, we got to fix and focus on basic agronomy first before anything else can truly be evaluated. Okay? John, this is right up your alley. So we talk about data-driven precision ag is about managing variability, and this goes back to basics. Okay? The question I have on there's two reasons why to have a yield monitor. And you know what? Yield monitors have been around so long now, it's like old hat. You know, nobody even thinks much about them because they've been around for so long. But what are two reasons to have a yield monitor other than fancy, pretty maps? Variability. Max says variability. So what does that variability show us? It answers two questions. What does it show us? Karen's chuckling at me. What two questions does a yield map show us? It answers two questions. Problems and successes, okay? As it relates to, welcome Chris. Last guy buys lunch, you know that? So it answers two questions. One is where. Where in the field is it good? Where in the field isn't it good? And how much? How much is it yielding, or how much is required based on soil test values or water management or seeding rates? It answers where and how much. Now, if you don't know that, and if you don't know how that changes in your fields, how can you evaluate any product or practice or technology that's on the market? If you just willy-nilly side-by-side it or don't understand variability in your field, how can you really truly evaluate something, right? Now, the reason to have good yield data, and the point of this slide is to show that if you have good yield data, no matter how many years of data you have or don't have, or what crop it is, if you have good yield data and your patterns are consistent, you are in a position to evaluate whatever it is you want to evaluate. And when you manage basic agronomy, and going back to our Brookside philosophy, Mark, sitting back here, is a fellow Brookside consultant of mine. We all have our philosophies on how we manage soils and how we balance them. So we are setting the stage to get or not get a response for whatever product or tool we're evaluating. We can verify that through good yield data, assuming we have good yield data. Okay? Is everybody with me on this so far? Is anybody not with me on this so far? Rob? Okay. We need to understand what drives the patterns that exist in the field. This slide right here, because the pointer doesn't work, is a sandier soil making our low yielding areas, is a heavier Poamo that's actually well drained. Over time, better yielding? Well, yes. Okay, but once you know that, does hydrology drive this? This is a topography map. Does water drive that? You bet water drives 90% of what we do. if you understand that stuff and how it relates to how your fields perform, you now have set the stage or put yourself in a position to utilize the tools that NutrientStar is set to do. Okay? Which is where we will now begin the NutrientStar discussion. I'm going to turn this over to Rob. But the point I want to drive home is you have to understand the basics and manage the basics so you set the stage to now use the NutrientStar tool that EDF and Karen and her group have graciously backed us up on for several years of work. Now, before I turn this over to Rob, I want to give a quick plug about NutrientStar. So, like I said, we've worked with Karen for, I guess, 12 years now, and we've done mostly replicated nitrogen rate trials. We did guided stalk sampling. We did a lot of imagery for years and years and years. And we learned so much about nitrogen that we don't know anything about nitrogen. We're dumber now than what we were 12 years ago. But it's been a lot of fun, and we've done a lot of work, and we have learned a lot. So where NutrientStar was birthed is we started nitrogen rate trials and guided stalk, and we verified those with imagery. And what the goal was to try to get farmer movement. We try to get farmers to change the way they're doing things by seeing how they're working on their own farm. Okay? So Max did nitrogen rate trials. You remember those? Yeah. So we ran those to build response curves to figure out what is the right rate of N. How many times do we get phone calls every June about, hey Greg, how much should I side dress my corn with? And I'm like, well, 20 years ago I had an answer. Today I have no idea, because we know so much about N that we don't know anything about N. But our focus was on nitrogen, and so the conversations we started having with EDF is, all right, we've done all these nitrogen rate trials, and we've done tons of imagery, tons of guided stalk samples, and we've kind of hit a stopping point. Maybe it's time to focus on all this stuff that we get inundated with and questions about, should I use N-Serve? Should I use Instinct? Should I use this? Should I use that? Does this product work? Does that product, does ESN, is that better than urea? You know, what scientific proof do we have that the products out here that exist actually work or don't work? Because outside of John's E-Fields work, which I think is fantastic, it's impossible for us to know and do and understand everything out there. So that's where NutrientStar was birthed. And NutrientStar's goal is to be an assessment tool for you all to go to the website and see what the performance is of given products and tools and different technologies on the market that you can take back to your customers or your farm or in your own business to decide whether it works or whether it doesn't work. Okay? It's like a publisher's clearinghouse, or the Consumer Reports for products and technologies. So I'm going to turn it over to Rob, and he's going to go into some detail what NutrientStar involves. Okay?
Yeah, I want to start off with a question. Can you grow a crop without using N-Serve or Instinct? Could you grow a crop without using that product? Yeah, you could. Could you grow a crop without using Agritain or Y-Drops? Yeah, you could. It's a risk to take to use those products because you can grow a crop without them. But if you knew and you had confidence that they would help you be more efficient and get a better yield, would you do that? Would you use them? Yes, you would. So that's exactly what NutrientStar's premise is and the goal is. The goal is to show you the performance of the products on the market. And for the most part, it's focused on nitrogen products. So things like Y-Drops, things like ESN, as Greg mentioned, Agritain, Instinct, all Lemus, stabilizers. Our goal was to figure out how they do. Do they, and more specifically, how they do in certain yield environments, different environments across the Midwest. We've run trials from New York to Michigan to Kansas, and we've tested a lot of different areas. And we've actually, and the goal behind that was to try to bring data that's more relevant to your farm. So we've tested a lot of these tools. We've tested them in a lot of different places. And the NutrientStar website, and the tool that I'm going to show you here in just a minute, is the way that you can access the information behind all the work that we put in, all the trials that we've run. Like Greg said, the eFields is a very similar goal. It's trying to give you confidence behind some of the products that are out there. Will they work for you? It's a risk to buy them. You can grow a crop without a lot of these products. But if you have confidence that they'll work or that they won't work, you can make a better decision. So we talked a little bit about NutrientStar, but the goal is here to figure out and to show you how nitrogen use efficiency products will work. Again, started by EDF. This is all free. This information is on our website. You can go to it right now. You can go to it after the meeting, but we'll go through. I will show you how to actually use the tool. It's a filtering tool is all it is. And I actually will show you how you can make it maybe even more relevant for your farm too. This is all conducted by third-party individuals like G&K or other consultants, a lot of them Brookside consultants across the Midwest for the most part. There is a farmer panel that reviews all the trials that we're doing, all the products we're looking at, and helps vet the information that's coming in. There's also the science review panel that vets a lot of that data too. So it goes through several filters before it ever reaches our website, which can hopefully give you confidence that it's good data. Where does our data come from? So I mentioned that we run a lot of different trials, and we surely do. We average about 50 per year, testing a number of different products. So a lot of them are field trials, but even a great deal more come from literature reviews. How many in this room have ever gone through and looked at the data in a literature review? John, have you ever? John? Anybody else? A couple? Oh, they're great. I love them too. I don't think I ever have. It's difficult. It takes time. It's a really heavy process. So we hired Duke to actually go through and look at all the data that is out there in literature reviews. Then it went through all those vetting processes, like we said, before it ever hit our website. So there was a lot of information out there that goes way back in the history. I mean, 70s. Some of the data is from the 70s. But that's when these products came out, and they're still being used. So the data was good. So there's some of the literature reviews. We have some company-supplied data. I think Lemus, and what's the other one? It was a company-supplied data. AdaptN gave us some trial data, so we're also testing models. I didn't even mention that. We're testing climate's model too. Right, exactly. So it is coming from companies, but the review, the way the trial was conducted, the way everything was handled, goes through all of those processes so that we can say, yeah, it was handled correctly, it's trustworthy data. It goes through all those filters before we give it our stamp of approval. University research data, I don't know if we actually have any of this yet. That's something that we certainly think is a market that we can look at for adding some more information and enlarging our data set. Now, I mentioned that I could make the information more relevant to your farm. This is how we tried to approach that. And this wasn't actually something that we created. This is a technology extrapolation domain map. This was created by Ken Kasman and his team at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. What they were trying to do was they were trying to figure out, and they did this for around the globe. They basically were trying to figure out how much a certain region was capable of producing. And to do that, they looked at soil water holding capacity. They looked at things in climate like growing degree days. They looked at how much change you saw in rainfall from winter or rainfall across the year, and how much temperature swings you saw from winter to summer. So the image on the left is basically that climate portion that I just talked about. Growing degree days, aridity index, so how much rainfall to evapotranspiration, and heat swings from winter to summer. Does that change much on your farm from the west side of it to the east side of it? Does the temperature in summertime change much from west to east? Does the amount of rainfall really change all that much? I would argue that maybe it doesn't change that much. Some. Of course it does. Every field's going to get a little bit of different rainfall every rain event, but not that much over a long-term average. What does change is the amount of water holding capacity. That might change several times in the same field if you go from one soil type to another. So the image on the left is showing that region broke down by climate. The image on the right is overlapped with water holding capacity. I would make the argument that all four of those characteristics have a large impact on nitrogen and nitrogen use efficiency. So if we use this tool, and we specifically the map on the right that breaks down those regions by all the climate factors and the soil factors, we can use that to potentially learn something about nitrogen. If I know a trial was conducted in that green portion here, but I live over here, also in that same TED, as we call them, I can have confidence that that information is going to be viable to me and my farm. So this is what we call the TED tool. We utilize this on our website, and you can as well. And I would say that you can probably use it for a lot more than I just explained, a lot more than using it for this. There's a number of ways you can use this tool all across, for your farm for a number of reasons. And really I want to jump in and show you the tool now. So we've gone through and I explained what NutrientStar was and how that TED tool worked. I'm going to show you our filter tool and how to use that TED tool really quick. Yeah, and any questions on that TED tool? Or any of that in general? So this is our website, NutrientStar.org, free website, like I said. There's a number of different tools that it can offer you, but the two that I want to look at are the TED tool and the filtering tool for today. So let's look at the TED tool to get started. It's going to be a little more difficult. There is a tutorial so that if you're trying to do this on your own at home, you can go through and look at that tutorial to help you along the process. But I'm going to go straight to the TED tool since I've used this before. You guys can kind of just follow along and see what it's capable of. Each one of these colors is a TED. And again, remember, that's representing basically similar climate and similar water holding capacity. This is where 70% of the corn in the United States is grown. If I am a person who lives, let's say I'm here in Northeast Indiana where we said G&K was, and I'm in that green TED. Typically, if someone brings me a product, my agronomist comes and talks to me, they might have local data. And I might say, yeah, that's local, it's important, I agree that yes, that's probably relevant to me. But if I'm using this tool, I'm not limited to just Northeast Indiana in my area. I can also have confidence that any trial conducted in West Michigan, Wisconsin, Northern Illinois is done in an area that's very similar in climate and soil water holding capacity to my farm. So that enlarges my data set by quite a bit. You have much more information out there that's going to be more valuable to your farm. But we got to figure out exactly where I farm to begin with, to figure out what TED I am in. To do that, I actually need to use this TED tool here. And I'll tell you that the easiest way to do it is to understand what your GPS coordinates are. GPS coordinates can be found from a number of different places. I'm going to use Google Maps today. So if I go up to Google, and I'm actually going to use Napoleon. I've used Napoleon in the past. It's a good example. Napoleon, Ohio. I just find Napoleon, Ohio on Google. And I go to the map. I'm going to pick a point. Say you found your farm here on Google. If I just right-click on it and say, what's here, it gives me my GPS coordinate right there. It's that easy. So I'm just going to copy it for now. Now I'm ready to go back to my TED tool. You can see it's still coming and still loading. That's just where 70% of the corn is grown. There is TEDs for the whole country. If I go to select TEDs by GPS coordinates, paste in my TED or my coordinates. I have to reverse this right now. By the end of the week, you won't have to. So if you just pasted them in and hit enter, you'd be able to search. But I have to reverse it for today. Oop. Hit search. I'm going to let that load. There's the point for the GPS coordinates that I just created. And you can see those are the county maps. It's set against the county map. So I can see that there are a number of different TEDs very close to where I farm. It's actually bringing in any TED that's within 1 mile of the point that I just selected. So you can see that there are soils on my farm that are similar to those farmed up in Michigan, Indiana. If I backed up, you'd see that there are a lot more in Wisconsin, Illinois, like I just said too. But like I said, these are those within 1 mile of your farm. And you can actually see here, these are the names of my TEDs, those colors, those regions. 81% of the farm ground that's within 1 mile of me is in this particular TED. And the name of it is 403603. So I'm going to keep that in mind. Maybe I write that down, 403603. So that when I go to my tool that has all the information on where all the trials were conducted, I can say, yeah, 403603. That's the one that I really care about. So let's do that. Let's go to the search tool for right now. I go back to NutrientStar's website, resources, trial results database. Let's see. Okay, everything. So this is the filtering tool that I talked about. You can search a number of different products on here, but right now, like I said, I just pulled up my TED. Let's look at what's been done in that TED. So here's my TEDs. Boy, I can't hardly see. Yeah, okay. Okay, hit search. I'm going to be able to see what trials were conducted within that TED that's very local to my farm. What products am I seeing that have been conducted there? What product trials? Looks like a lot of Adapt-N. I see a bunch of Adapt-N on there. So if we look at all these here, there's 16 so far, and I can keep scrolling. These are all product trials that were done with Adapt-N on the 403603 TED. Remember, that's very similar to my farm in terms of climate and soil. Here we can see how that yield turned out. And with Adapt-N, it was actually what Adapt-N predicted for amount of nitrogen versus what the farmer was already running, so the farmer normal. And you can see how that performed. There's a number of different attributes there also shown. The control, yield percentage. If there was organic matter listed, that's also going to be listed up here. I don't see that for any of these ones right now. But if you get in some of the other products, it'll show you all that information. I'm going to keep scrolling. See if anything else was tested. More Adapt-N, more Adapt-N. Some climate. I see ESN, Super U. So there's 4 different products tested just on that same sort of environment that I am farming. Maybe those are the ones you look at and say, yeah, that's probably what I can expect out of that product if I used it there. So that's one way to use the TED tool. You can use it to use the filter tool. You can look at it by looking at TEDs. Let's say that you just are interested in figuring out how does this product work, regardless of where it was tested. You can also use it in the same way. So if I go back to the top, sure. Some of those filters that you can look at are crop of interest. So there's some of this has been tested in wheat. Nitrogen form. So if you're interested, if you're testing instinct, Was it used on 28 or urea? What state it was actually conducted in. So there's a number of different filters. Like I said, this is just a filter tool that displays all this information. So if I was interested in figuring out just how a certain product did, I need to get rid of that TED, just go back to nothing, because right now it's searching in all of them. So uncheck the box. Here's all the different products we've tested. So I'll read that to you. We've got Dapten, Agritane, Agritane Plus, ammonium thiosulfate, Avail, Climate, DCD, ESN, Green Seeker, Instinct, Lemus, Nitropyrin, Nutrisphere, and Super U. You can find information on how all those different products performed in the field with field trials. So like I said, if you weren't using TED, you just wanted to understand how, let's pick Avail. How did Avail do? Across basically this is all the information we have on Avail. Hit search. I can see the trials. I can see where they're conducted. Looks like a lot of them were actually done in Kansas, some in North Carolina. What products were they done on? I see all corn so far. Or what crops, I should say. I see some wheat there. And if you actually had things set up correctly, it will show you an average of the whole farm. So it's a pretty interesting tool. Any questions about the tool or any of the information or how we derived any of the information?
Rob, you did mention that a lot of the product trials were done with universities, and that's the information through the literature.
Okay.
Adapted and climate were trials that we did.
Right. A lot of the trials were conducted with university help then, or were they on universities?
It's like historic information that we gathered from the literature review that was
True.
So they're small blood trials.
Okay, so a lot of the literature review information did come from universities. So those ones would be smaller trials. Those that we've conducted now at large field scale, for sure, Adaptin, a lot of climate. This year, Y-drop. Next year, climate's launching. We call it their spatial trial, but it's variable rate nitrogen at the field scale level. So we've tested that one, and that information will be going onto the website as well. I think climate is actually launching that for growers this spring. So a lot of information. This keeps getting added to new products all the time. If you are a company who wants to have your product tested, you can submit that to our review panel as well, and we can look at some of that data. Even if you already have the data, we can see if it's can get our stamp of approval too. Yeah, Mark.
Where's the soil data come from?
It would have been provided for the most part, either whether it was if the company had it, then it came from the company. But when we conduct field trials, all that information is actually supplied by the consultant or the farmer when they do the trial.
You mean for the TEDs, though?
Do you mean for the TEDs, Mark?
Yes.
Oh, the TED, that is from Surgo. Sorry, the TED tool comes from Surgo. That's right. Any other questions? Yeah.
Are you guys going to start doing trials in phosphorus, or are you guys going to stick to nitrogen?
Great question. So Avail right now, of course, is on the edge of a phosphorus product. It's the only one that we have at this point. I don't believe we are venturing there now. It's a question that we get all the time.
Do you know of any other phosphorus products that are available aside from Avail? Anybody? Because we haven't found any yet. Only nitrogen products. So if you know of any, let us know.
Is there a phosphorus use efficiency product out there besides Avail that anybody's working with? Yeah, biologicals, sure.
You're talking about biologicals.
Well, he mentioned that was the part of it. Any other questions?
Hey, Rob, a couple of questions.
Yeah.
I didn't look on my smartphone, but the ease of looking at and previewing all the information like on a smartphone and tablet,
Yeah.
can you comment on that?
Sure. On a tablet, this does look a little different. But we've had people using their iPads or a number of different tablets that hasn't been an issue with.
It's tougher on phones.
It's hard, yeah, certainly harder on a phone. I've never looked at it on a phone, John. Okay, yeah. I would recommend using the computer. The computer is what it was designed for originally, and then it was secondarily added for the tablets.
If you do it on the iPad, you have to shrink the view.
Yeah, there might be a trouble with viewfinder. We say with the iPad, so you have to shrink your view. Computer's the best way to do it.
What,
Good question.
besides the website, social media, how else can you kind of keep up with you on the NutrientStar side?
Sure. Yeah, Karen is a great follow for NutrientStar on Twitter. I follow Karen there. If you do want to contact Karen or someone in the NutrientStar team on adding a product, you can go through the website.